did. I am a huge Adidas fan, by the way. And always it's a love-hate relationship because I never know what to expect. But hey everyone, Matt here from Doctors of Running. Today we're going to do a review of all the new additions to the Adizero line, including the Boston 10, Adios 6, and the Adios Pro 2. I'm very excited to share all of our thoughts with all of you on this. We will have full reviews on all three of these. The Boston 10 and the Adios 6 are already out. I am working on the Adios Pro 2 as we speak, so looking forward to getting these out to you. But let's start with the Boston 10. The Boston makes such a huge change from previous versions. I mean, like the weight is a lot more. It's, I think size 9 is 10.4 ounces for men. It's 9.4 ounces for women, size 8. My size 10 was 10.8 ounces. This is a heavy shoe on paper. Does not feel like that at all on foot. I'd say I've really enjoyed the ride. I did not think I was going to, but I really, really did. I am a huge Adidas fan, by the way. And always it's a love-hate relationship because I never know what to expect, but they did a good job. Despite the weight, it does not feel like this. It does not feel that heavy. There's a ton more stack height than ever before seen in a Boston. It's not quite the same shoe as it was. So previous versions of the Boston, they were super light. They were almost the same weight as the Adios. They were like 8 ounces. You could definitely use them as workout shoes. They were awesome lightweight trainers and definitely as long distance racing flats. So I've many years watching the LA Marathon, participating in it, and always interested to see a lot of Kenyan athletes in the elite field using the Bostons as racing flats. I think they have more options now, but back then the Adios has been the fast shoe that can double as a trainer and a marathon racer very, very well. This really changes here. This is a trainer, but it can move a lot faster than you would expect. There's a ton of cushioning under here, obviously. It's a combination of Light Strike and Light Strike Pro, like many of the Adizero line right now. I'm really enjoying the Light Strike Pro. It's got some serious bounce to it, and it blends very well with the Light Strike in this version. So again, it's not the same. It's now a max cushion daily trainer / up tempo trainer. And I say that because even at 10.8 ounces for my size 10, I've done some pretty great workouts in this. I started with some fartleks. I wasn't in super great shape at the time, but slowly was building into it. And I did tempo run at like 545, 550 pace, which, didn't used to be that fast. Now it's really good for me, given the number of responsibilities I have, including working full time, treating patients on the side, and doing a full-time PhD. So being able to do 545 is a really big deal, especially in a shoe like this. So you can get up on your toes really easily. You can definitely use this for intervals. It's a great shoe if you want the amount of stack height here. And those rods are a little stiff. It takes some time to break in, and I definitely notice them when I warm up. But once you transition, it's super smooth. So you can see the rods here. Adidas doesn't initially use plates, although there are some plates in the rear of some of their models. The Boston doesn't do that. It's got the rods, combined with the Light Strike Pro, and there's some bounce to the shoe. And I really love this for training. I could not believe that I kept grabbing this for pretty much everything, for fartleks, for long runs, for tempo runs. It really was a great shoe to be able to do everything in, except I would not race in this. I think some people who are a little concerned about more aggressive shoes, this would be a great shoe to do a marathon in if you still want a little pop from rods. But it's definitely protective and definitely for getting miles in. I just love the Light Strike Pro has been doing really well for me. The forefoot especially is really bouncy. The overall ride though is on the firmer side. It's not a super soft ride. It's firmer, it's more responsive. It's so that you can push. Definitely a little almost harsh on warm up, but then everything smooths out. Really well rockered. I mean, toe spring, again, similar to other racing flats in the Adios line, except the only variation is that they toned the grade of the toe spring down a little bit. So it's a lot smoother than previous. Adidas think you guys can smooth out just a little more because it is a trainer. Most interesting thing that carried over is the heel bevel. It is biased laterally. So when you land, there's a really nice smooth landing here. Again, a little firmer, more stable, which is great for someone like me. But it's definitely keeps my foot lined a little bit more in the center / lateral. So people that have sensitivity to being pushed this direction laterally, be cautious. Those people who want a little bit of stability, this is a great shoe. I would say that I would categorize this almost as a unofficial lightweight stability shoe based on broad platform, based on the rods, which lock in everything really well, and the lateral bias here, which again, there's always ways to create stability outside of using posts. The thing you need to be aware of is if you do not like stiff shoes, this is not going to be a shoe for you. It's definitely stiff. It loosens up as you get more miles on it. I've got 120 on this pair, which is why the outsole looks like that, which this is actually pretty good for me to get to 100 miles. But, this shoe will last. It'll last probably as long as average as most trainers, like 300-ish, 400 miles. But it's a stiff shoe. So people that don't like stiffness, you are going to notice this immediately throughout the length of the shoe. It's a slightly firmer ride. Those people who maybe don't want to go as aggressive as something like this, great option to try to work yourself into dealing with stiffer shoes. But overall, I really like it. The upper, it feels good. It's definitely a little tapered here. I love this look. I love the suede here on the toe box is a classic Adidas thing, but it is a little narrow initially. It does open up with time. So upper, surprisingly breathable, except when it gets really hot. This mesh material doesn't breathe as well as I would like. But overall, for most normal temperature runs, the upper is going to do fine. It still feels like a racing fit on the top with just a little extra room in the heel and the midfoot-ish, especially the heel. I did have to lace lock this as I was slipping out a little bit. But the nice part about that is there is a heel counter, but it's not super rigid. So it did not bother me that much. So overall, I really like this shoe. There's definitely some things that can be improved, especially weight. But even weight, this shoe moves like a far faster shoe. If you want one shoe to be able to handle up like longer distance stuff, long runs, intervals, tempo runs, the Boston is still your shoe. Just know that Boston lovers, it's going to be a very different ride than previous. There's no boost. Light Strike Pro is legit, but it's a very different shoe than previous. So just be aware. Now, people looking for the spiritual successor to the Boston 9 are probably going to find that better in the Adios 6. So this shoe is similar in essence to previous versions, but gains quite a bit of weight, and it's just different than. I think this is kind of good because it fits a little different market than previously. Because again, all these shoes that are coming out makes shoes like this kind of hard to come by and hard to compete. But I'm a little confused about this shoe. So let me just start with weight. So this shoe gains quite a bit of weight. No longer is it sub 7 ounces. It's now 8.6 ounces for men's size 9. Let me double check on women's. Women's is 7.8 ounces for a women's size 8. My size 10 was 8.9 ounces, which for a racing flat is pretty heavy, especially for racing flat that this close to the ground. This is not a max cushion, max stack height shoe. The stack height in the forefoot is still 24 millimeters, which is better, is higher than the previous version. So it does gain some height, but it's just different and not necessarily in a bad way. It just makes it a different purpose. So I would pit this shoe as the new Boston. This is the Boston 9 successor. It's still low to the ground. I think stack height is actually somewhat similar. They're now using Light Strike and Light Strike Pro, which I love the Light Strike Pro in the forefoot. Getting up on your toes feels good in this shoe. But people who really want a lightweight trainer, this is it. Adidas was building this shoe as a 5K, 10K racer, and I personally would not use it for that. I think maybe 10K if you wanted this kind of shoe, but for a 5K, I don't think so. I think that you could go much lighter than this, like the Takumi Sen, or which version 7 is available in the United States, or for those of you internationally, the Bakoji, which is nobody ever talks about that shoe. I know it's not available in the US, but I reviewed version 1. That's also a legit light shoe, which I think is really cool. But this is different, and it's more of a kind of like, if you were going to race in it, I'd say half marathon, maybe 10K. I don't think there's enough cushion for a lot of people for doing the marathon unless you'd like a shoe like this. But it still can move fast. So the Light Strike, again, as similar with the Boston, it's a firmer ride throughout the length of the shoe. There is less of a heel bevel here, so the transition here is a little clunky. But if you get up forwards, it's super smooth. There is extended torsion system, but there's still a good amount of flexibility here, but it's got some snap. There is some snap to it. So no plates, no rods in these, but the extended torsion system, which I love, returns, which still gives you flexibility, but gives you a nice snappy toe off without making it too stiff. So those people that want the super stiff ride, this isn't going to be the best option for you. The Adios Pro 2 might be a better option, but people that want some decent ground feel, right? So this is a little closer to the ground. The Light Strike Pro does compress really well, but gives you a nice pop off the ground. So one of the best uses I've found for this, even though I've gotten lots of miles doing daily training in it, which it does work well for, has been for intervals and tempo runs. Getting up on the front of my feet feels really good. It's got a nice bounce to it. It reminds me of the other previous Bostons and some of the older Adios shoes. This shoe can move. I had trouble with the Adios 5, and I'll be totally honest that I hated that shoe. It was not pleasant. I use it as a trainer, which is fine, but it was not pleasant using as a faster shoe. This one is different, gains weight, but the Light Strike Pro and the torsion system, it can move, which is great, but it can't move fast enough, in my opinion, for being a super light racing flat. Upper wise, fairly narrow, so a little more consistent with older Adios models. So those people that like a snug fit or have a narrow foot, you are going to love this upper. The upper is really nice. It's very breathable. It's just a thin mesh material here. There is a heel counter, but it's super flexible. So I've actually worn this shoe sockless and not had too many problems, although the mesh might be a little scratchy. Upper is nice. So again, those people that want a snug or narrow fit, this is going to be a great shoe. Like I said, Light Strike, I didn't like the Light Strike in this shoe as much. It was a little firm and clunky in the back, but the Light Strike Pro as always comes through. So again, the Adios 6 has changed its function. This is more of a closer to the ground lightweight trainer than a racing flat. And I think people are going to be able to use this as a workout shoe primarily. Like this is your more conservative workout shoe. Those people going, I want a slightly lighter shoe that's got some snap to it, but I don't want to use a plate on workout days. I want to save that for, why am I having a brain fart? Save those for racing days or try to avoid using a plated shoe. This is a great option. And again, I'm going to say this for the millionth time. This is my spiritual successor to the Boston 9. So people that want the Boston, but not the Boston 10, this is a great shoe. I really do love this shoe. Even like it's not a Boston in my mind, but I really like it. And I kind of want another pair, but I gave my pair to David. I'm also sending these to David. We have reviewed these just like the Boston 10. So David should have some thoughts on these as well in a written form. So I'm excited to see what he thinks. He's also an Adidas geek previously, although now he's sponsored by Hoka. All right, now for the main attraction, not main. I mean, like I like both the Adios 6 and the Boston 10, especially this one. But I got to say, I was really blown away by the Adios Pro 2. People can look at my Adios Pro 1 review, and the upper was amazing. The sole had a lot of potential. It wasn't what I was hoping it to be, especially because I went out of my way to go buy that shoe on StockX before it was supposed to be available, and it was not worth it to me. I would never spend that money on a running shoe again, especially not that one. What I suspect, though, is that I got a pre-production version. I'd love from somebody to Adidas to confirm that, because the foam just was not what I would have expected for something bouncy, and it's totally different than what I'm experiencing in this. I had some other people, lots of other reviewers, and people say, oh, like the Adios Pro 1 is like the greatest shoe. It's got this amazing foam. And I'm like, I don't feel that. And I suspect it's because I had a pre-production model and they fixed that. But this is legit. This might be my racing flat of the year. I love the Light Strike Pro in this. And again, I liked it in the other versions as well, the other Adizero shoes as well. But having pure Light Strike Pro, I've been taking this shoe with me everywhere. It's super bouncy, not as unstable as the Vaporfly or Alphafly, although there's some interesting things that we'll talk about here. But man, this is a great shoe. I've really enjoyed doing workouts in this shoe. I've done some long runs in this shoe and felt great afterwards. This is, I think, the shoe I've been kind of looking for outside of the ASICS one, which I don't know why the Metaspeed Sky is another favorite of mine, but wasn't quite stable enough in the rear foot to me. Like, I really like this shoe. I'm excited to try the Edge. but this one is legit. I'm like gushing over the shoe. The upper's really good. The rear foot isn't quite as good of a hold as the previous version, but I really love, again, there's no heel counter here, so it fits really well. I did have to lace lock the shoe because I was getting some slippage, but that fixed it. It's a really thin mesh upper. It breathes super well, and it feels like your foot, not my foot disappears. It feels like the upper disappears. The only thing is the laces are a little thin. They were digging in my foot, but once I broke it in, it was fine. The sole, oh my gosh, I can't say enough good things about the Light Strike Pro. It's, for a lot of people, not going to be stable enough in certain areas. Like the forefoot is phenomenal, just like the last version, super stable, really nice, a really nice toe off. Getting up on my toes on like this stuff feels great. The toe spring feels a little less aggressive than the previous version, so the transition's a little bit better, but these aren't meant to go slow. Okay, even during the long run, I was doing a longer fartlek. These are not meant to be trainers. These are designed as racing shoes, so this can get a little stiff during cool downs or easy miles, but once you start moving, it's beautiful. It just pivots you off really fast. The midfoot is a little narrow. I didn't actually have any problems with the midfoot because, again, the rods seem to stabilize this really, really well. I think where some people are going to run into trouble is with the rear foot. Personally, it works very well for my mechanics. I'm somebody who tends to have a little extra ankle motion going medially, i.e. pronating a little bit too quickly. I'm working on that strength, so it's been getting better. But there's just like the last version, a very large lateral heel bevel. I believe, Nick Roche, please, if you see this, please correct me if I'm wrong. In addition to the rods, like the first version, there is a plate in the rear foot to act for stability. And what it does, there's a large lateral bias in this shoe. So when I land, especially the rear foot, which you can tell I'm definitely a rear foot striker, I can feel myself being guided much more laterally. So again, this is technically a neutral shoe, and it's so soft. It's definitely one, but there are some mechanisms that will push you out laterally at the rear foot. So people that like that, like me, work super well for. I can actually do a long run in this shoe and not have any problems, where a shoe like the Vaporfly, I can, when I'm running fast, I can do it. But when I'm running slow, I cannot do that because it's too unstable for me. And then my hips and ankles will get really sore. The Adios Pro, no problem. No additional soreness, very stable for my mechanics, not for a lot of people. So if you have sensitivity going out, probably not going to work for you. But those people that need stability, like to to give them a little extra medial stability, this is going to be great. The way that the bevel's shaped, the way the plate goes in here, the way the rod's set up just creates a really stable but super soft, responsive platform. The ride is very soft. This much Light Strike Pro compresses a ton. There's a lot of rebound. I've run some of my fastest miles in a long time in this shoe, and I have enjoyed the heck out of it. So I know I was a little harsh on the first version. This one is awesome. I've been very cautious. I know I've already blown through the outsole, which again, this is a racing flat, so no judgment here. But durability is not the hottest in the rear foot, or at least it's not durable enough for my mechanics. It can be pretty mean. Up front, been totally fine. It's handled well. I have, I think, almost 50 miles in my pair right now, and they're still going super strong. The Adios, I keep saying the Adios Pro Light. The Light Strike Pro is super durable. This has not changed at all since the first day I put them on. I feel like every time I put them on, I'm like, am I putting on a new shoe? So resiliency of this foam is very good. I need to look up what this stuff is. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's not EVA, and I don't want to be wrong and try this, but I'll have to look up what this is. But this stuff, it's really good. I totally forgot to go over weight. But weight-wise, this shoe sits in at 8 ounces, which is amazing to me that this is like almost an ounce. It's almost half an ounce lighter than it is a half an ounce lighter than the Adios 6. Like this stack height difference is, maybe it's not that crazy. Actually, that's pretty crazy. So that's a large amount more foam, but this one feels significantly lighter. I would say there's a lot of super shoes out there that feel heavier than their weight. This one feels a lot lighter. Like if you hadn't told me, I'd probably be like mid 7, low 7 ounces, but it's not. It's 8 ounces. My size 10 is 8.5 ounces. Just not bad at all. This is a direct competitor to shoes like the Alpha Fly And I think even the Vaporfly, even though the weight is more, because there's just some great bounce to this shoe. There is a 8-ish millimeter drop in this shoe. I totally forgot about those. So all three of these actually have an 8-ish millimeter drop. So 8 here, and then 8.5 in this one. Although you wouldn't know it, again, because if you land in the rear foot, you're going to compress the foam and it may not feel that high. Oh, that's not that high. So use wise, this is a racing flat. I have considered using this. I haven't raced in a while. I would definitely consider this shoe for 10K and up. I think even with how responsive it is, I would actually consider this for a 5K, just as a little extra protective stuff. And I've run 5Ks in shoes like the Endorphin Pro and other maximal shoes. And they haven't always been my favorite, but they do really well for recovery. But I think you can get away with almost any race distance in this shoe. I think the foam is so bouncy, it's aggressive enough that I would use it for 5K. I think there's some other options out there that may be better for 5K, but for 10K and up, this is going to work well up to the marathon. There's enough cushioning here and stability for me, like I should say direction, not stability, because it's pretty soft and not the most stable, but there's no direction for me that I think this would work very, very well. I almost ran a 50K because my fiance was considering going after the world standard, and this would have been my shoe of choice just because there's so much protection. I felt so comfortable doing both longer tempos, intervals, everything in this shoe. So yeah, I'm really impressed. I think feedback wise, Adidas, I like the controlled bevel. For a greater audience, you may have to be a little cautious with that. I like it. It works for mechanics. I just like to see a little bit better lockdown in the upper and a little adjustment of the laces. But everything else, man, I wish I'd tried legit Lightstrike Pro earlier, because this much I really love. I really want to try the Prime X, the Adizero Prime X. The rest of my cohort at Doctors of Running have been telling me not to go try to find it on eBay because I've been looking for it. And it's like, find it for like $400. So they've convinced me to wait. But the Adios Pro 2 is definitely worth a look. It's going to feel a little unstable in the rear foot for a lot of people. For me, it works very, very well. Forefoot transition is great. The rods work very well. And when you put some force into this shoe, it moves. Durability of the midsole is really good. Upper, very thin and nice in the front here. Laces, you might want to actually replace the laces. Not a bad idea. Just make sure you lock it down because there's some heel slippage. But overall, this is pretty legit. I really enjoyed this. And I think this is right now my racing flat of the year, or at least maximal racing flat of the year. And yeah, I'm just gushing over this, but there's some improvement still to be made. But overall, that's the most recent additions to the Adizero line. I'm really curious if there's going to be why do I keep calling this the wrong one? The Adizero Line. I can't remember the shoe, but there's another one that I'm wondering if there's going to be a version 2. I've heard it's been discontinued, which is kind of sad, but these are pretty legit. If you have all three of these, they're going to fit every need you could possibly need. Training, lightweight trainer, like workout shoe, and then racing. These are really great. So I'm very impressed with the Adizero line. They do fit a little more snug, except for the Adios Pro 2, which actually fits a hair wider, which is interesting. But I'd encourage you not to be afraid of the rods. Just know that the rides are a little stiffer. So those people that like flexibility, other than the Adios 6, the other two are going to be definitely stiff, and that's something you have to get used to and choose if that's what you want. Durability wise, I got to give all credit to the Adios 6. Like, this shoe has survived me, which is a big deal. And I think I have 40, 50 miles on these with very little wear. The other ones, it's pretty normal, right? Normal durability for a like lightweight trainer training shoe and a racing flat. That's just how it goes. Yes, there's a ton of foam here, but outsole wise, kind of similar to what I had last time, where it's still fine. I'm going to use this for a long time, but don't be surprised when you if you see yourself blow through the outsole. Overall, though, Adidas is doing great stuff. I'm really happy with the whole line. I'm curious to see what else they have up their sleeves and to see how this stuff evolves. It's really good. I'm glad I finally got to try Lightstrike Pro. I encourage you to try it. And just know that, again, I'm going to say this, people that don't like the Boston 10, try the Adios 6. You might find your new Boston. For people that are going, oh, where's that like Vaporfly replacement? There are plenty, and there are plenty coming out. I would encourage you to try some other stuff. This one is working phenomenally for me. It's been my racing shoe of choice There are plenty of other options out there. I'd also encourage people to look at the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite. This has also been a personal favorite. This is one I would probably use for 5K and everything else. Asics, the Metaspeed has been really good. I'm very, very, very curious to try the Edge, but we'll have all those reviews coming up. So we appreciate you following us. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. As always, please like and subscribe. We have tons of social media places for you to follow what we're doing. We've got some awesome new guest reviewers that we're debuting, and they're doing a great job already adding to the incredible number of shoes that we're getting. I never thought that we'd be at this level, but here we are. And so there's lots of places. So our Strava is finally live. So you can go check us out there and see what all of us are training in and doing. You can check out, again, a million other places. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think there's a Pinterest too. Bacher, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, just follow up with us. We got some really cool stuff coming out. We're very excited to share both what we usually do and some new stuff coming down the pipeline as we both take a look at the really cool new shoes coming to market, as well as add some new thoughts on what's happening and try to dive into the science behind what we're putting on our feet. So thanks again for watching, and please tune in. We'll have some more cool stuff coming up.